Today we are going to court live for the coverage of the Kouri Richins preliminary hearing. If you remember, Kouri Richins is accused by the state of poisoning her husband. She wasn't arrested till over a year after his death in Utah. She had written a children's book about grief, but that's not all she wrote. She also wrote the walk the dog letter that I have covered on this channel. She also wrote quite a lot of letters from custody saying that those were another novel, and they were not, in fact, her telling witnesses what they should testify to. And then the state brought more charges. So today we are here for the preliminary hearing on all of the charges. Murder, attempted murder for a prior incident where her husband ate what the state has alleged to be a laced sandwich on Valentine's Day prior to his death in early March. And they have also charged her with bank fraud, mortgage fraud, and a couple other frauds. A note about preliminary hearing. Preliminary hearings are just to determine if there's probable cause to hold someone to answer for trial. This is not a full trial. There is no jury present. The judge is the finder of facts. The judge determines if the state has proven each charge.
The court reaches the following determinations. First, for the reasons described at the detention hearing, which remain valid today, the prosecution has shown probable cause that count 1, aggravated murder, and count 3, distribution of a controlled substance, both of which relate to events that are alleged to have occurred on or about March 3rd and 4th of 2022, are supported by probable cause. Ms. Richins is bound over for trial on counts 1 and 3. With respect to count 2, attempted aggravated murder, alleged to have occurred on February 14 of 2022, the prosecution has admitted evidence sufficient to support a reasonable belief of the following facts and events. That in January of 2022, Kouri Richins secured a life insurance policy on her husband's death, or her husband's life, through fraudulent means. That she had a significant financial incentive to secure his death because she would do better under the premarital agreement if he were dead, and her businesses were highly leveraged. That on February 14, she purchased food for them both, including him. She described it as lunch in her text message to her friend in June. She was not honest about where she was going that day or what she was doing after she left the family home. Eric had a significant reaction to something that day, sufficient to make him consider going to the hospital. The state has admitted evidence that fentanyl can cause a serious reaction. There's significant evidence, at least, to support a probable cause finding that Ms. Richins had secured fentanyl by February 11th, and that on or about February 26th, she contacted her source again and said she needed something stronger. These facts taken together would support issuance of a search warrant to investigate whether Ms. Richins had attempted to cause the death of her husband. They would support issuance of an arrest warrant for her arrest on attempted murder, and they are sufficient to support bind over under the probable cause standard for attempted aggravated murder on February 14, 2022. The court makes this determination without considering the probable cause that indicates that Ms. Richins actually caused the death of her husband on March 4th. And so while the court is considering evidence of statements made by Ms. Richins and actions taken by Ms. Richins after February 14th, it is not that action. That is the alleged successful completion of the attempt. Rather, the actions and statements the court is considering that occurred after February 14 were text messages to her paramour to the effect of, I wish he would just go away, or if my husband would just go away. Her contact with her source of controlled substances, seeking something stronger, which leads to a reasonable inference that the stuff she got before did not give her the results she wanted. And her statements on June 18, 2022, to her best friend, that she provided him lunch. And this, of course, includes the evidence from the morning of February 14 that she did, in fact, buy food from the Mirror Lake Diner. Taken together, viewed in the evidence in the light most reasonable to the state, drawing all reasonable inferences in the state's favor, this evidence supports a non-speculative inference that Ms. Richins attempted to murder her husband with fentanyl on February 14th. Having drawn that determination, it also requires the court to bind her over trial on count 4, which is the distribution charge related to February 14th. We pause there before we get to the financial charges. Mr. Bloodworth, do you need any clarification of the court's ruling so far?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Lewis?
No.
Okay. All right. Count 6 and 7, mortgage fraud with respect to the Iron Bridge loan and the Boomerang Finance loan, respectively, are bound over. Counts 7 and 8, insurance fraud with respect to the $250,000 True Stage policy, and then a scheme with respect to the $100,000 True Stage life insurance policy, respectively, are bound over. What's that business?
I think you just said 6 and 7 and 7 and 8, and you skipped 5.
My apologies. 5 and 6 are Iron Bridge and Boomerang, respectively. 7 and 8 are the $250,000 two-stage policy, and the scheme related to the $100,000 true stage policy, respectively. 9, 10, and 11 are forgery counts related to the altered America First Credit Union account statement submitted in respect to the Iron Bridge and Boomerang Finance loans, and with number 11, the forged signature on the $100,000 True Stage life insurance application. Mr. Bloodworth, any clarification?
No, sir, thank you.
Ms. Nestor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
At the end of the Kouri Richins preliminary hearing, the judge held her to answer and bound her over for trial on all of the charges against her. This was not a surprise by any means. The defense and prosecution did spend a good portion of day 2 arguing over whether or not the standard of probable cause had been met. At one point, I was not persuaded as the defense started wading into whether or not the incident on Valentine's Day was in fact an attempted murder, because, you know, everybody eats their egg sandwiches right away. And if you don't, he didn't start feeling badly then, so you don't know that she laced his egg sandwich with something on Valentine's Day. So the attempted murder charge should be thrown out. And the judge made a very thorough record about the circumstances leading up to and after that attempted murder charge on February 14th. Kouri Richins is also charged with aggravated murder, numerous counts of distribution for giving fentanyl to her husband, Eric Richins, numerous counts of forgery, mortgage fraud, and insurance fraud. Those all loop into the motives and the things that were going on with her running into massive financial troubles as her rapidly expanding house flipping business was in deep and dire and drastic financial straits. We heard a lot in this preliminary hearing that we had not heard before, including more about text messages between Kouri and who the prosecution calls her paramour, her lover, her side piece, her boyfriend, whatever you want to call it. There was another dude in Kouri's life, and she was texting him things like, you know, if I could just get rid of my husband, ... things would be perfect. Yes, the prosecution said ... not ellipses. We're letting it go. Also, she texted him, things are about to change if you can just hang on till Friday. And Friday was the day that Eric Richins was dead. So the texting of the boyfriend, things are going to change, just hang in there till Friday, when your spouse is then found dead on a Friday, is not going to be helpful when you get to trial. And we had not heard some of those text messages before. That was new information. We also heard from a forensic accountant who had information from Eric Richins' divorce attorney. Eric Richins met with a divorce attorney in October 2020 ahead of his death in March 2022. What it seems that Kouri Richins did not know is that Eric took all of his assets and his estate and moved it into a living trust, the beneficiary of that trust being his children, the executor of that trust being his sister, not Kouri, meaning the house she was living in that was in her husband's name, the business that he had that was thriving, and everything else that he had would go to his kids and not to her. We heard that in that conversation with his defense attorney, because those divorce attorney notes were reviewed by the forensic accountant, showing that Eric had told the divorce attorney that Kouri had taken out a home equity line of credit on the home that is only in Eric's name, and that he had not taken that out. Well, Eric's signature was on that home equity line of credit. And so it was suspected that that might have been a forged loan. It is not one of the charged forged loans. Also, she took out a life insurance policy on Eric on January 29th, 2022. That life insurance policy went into effect February 2nd. The attempted murder is from February 14th. And after the February 14th incident where Eric ate a sandwich that Kouri had provided to him, after she had asked CL for fentanyl or some Michael Jackson stuff, after he had gotten very sick and texted his friends that he thought he might need to go to the hospital, texted her that he thought he might need to go to the hospital, which she responded, take a nap. We saw that she reached out to CL again and said she was going to need some stronger stuff. And then when the murder happened, we heard that it was not, in fact, a laced Moscow Mule, but it was a lemon shot that was provided to Eric, and that Kouri had made journal entries about this, indicating that she was going to need a truckload of fentanyl to kill Eric, seeming to learn from the attempted murder on February 14th. There are still a lot of details in this case that we're not going to know yet. There are the binder of exhibits, the cell phone dumps, and the rest of it are going to be telling. But what is incredibly telling about the cell phone evidence is how much of it's deleted off of Kouri's phone and how much of it still existed on Eric's phone, on the Paramore's phone, on the Bestie's phone, and on other phones. So it's very telling what was extracted from other phones and no longer existed on Kouri's phone. Quite a lot of deleted information, but the phone was not rehomed. The SIM card was not destroyed. And we know that after the investigation started knocking on Kouri's door, that she was Googling things like luxury prisons for rich people and Googling information about how police might be able to recover information off of cell phones. So it's clearly something that she was worried about. It will be very interesting to see this go to trial, and the court did set a trial date. Jury selection is supposed to start on April 28th, 2025, and the trial is anticipated to run through May 22nd of 2025. For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them on my YouTube channel at The Emily D. Baker and The Emily Show podcast. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday. The podcast goes live on Wednesdays. And if you want to stay in the loop with everything I'm doing, receive the fastest notifications out there, and get more Law Nerd community, join me at lawnerdapp.com, our free app for iOS and Android.